Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Morning Five on Wednesday, October 8th, 2014. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by Alex Gleitman. I want to start off talking recruiting, and specifically two players in the 2015 class that have been on Ohio State's radar for quite some time, linebacker Jerome Baker and running back Damien Harris. Baker is committed to Florida, of course, but I think he'll be a Buckeye in the end. Meanwhile, most everyone thought Harris was OSU-bound a few months ago, but now he seems to be trending in Kentucky's favor. Alex, again, if I'm guessing right now, I think Baker's going to sign with Ohio State. And if I'm guessing right now, unfortunately, I think Harris will sign with Kentucky. A few months ago, I said that was crazy, but that seems to be the way it's trending. What are your predictions there? Where do you think Baker will go, and where do you think Harris will go?
Yeah, ever since Jerome Baker committed to Florida, we actually kind of knew the day before or so that he was going to select Florida when he did commit. And, I said on the site at the time that I wasn't going to switch my crystal ball from Ohio State because that's where I thought he eventually was going to end up. Just between Urban Meyer continuing to recruit him and Will Muschamp's future in Gainesville being in jeopardy, which it still is despite a 10-9 win over Tennessee last week. I think Jerome Baker ultimately ends up at Ohio State. I think that's where his family wants him to be. I think that's kind of where he always wanted to be. I think DJ Durkin did a great job of trying to convince him to, quote-unquote, like, be his own man and go do like LeBron and go leave the state to kind of grow up and then come back and help fulfill his goals and make him the NFL. But personally, I think Jerome Baker is going to be a Buckeye at the end of the day. I think it's just way too much going for the Buckeyes at this time. Damien Harris, I still have him as an Ohio State Buckeye. I think things are definitely trending toward Kentucky. I mean, he lives 20 miles from campus. We knew he was going to be going to a ton of games up in Lexington this year, so it's no surprise that he continues to go there for unofficial visits. But at the same time, he is going there. He is continuing to build relationships with their players, their future recruits and commits, their coaching staff. Mark Stoops has done a great job with him. So I think things are trending a little bit toward Kentucky. I think everyone's getting a little caught up in the hype over their win over South Carolina. But if Kentucky continues to prove that they could be a contender and, at least contend in games this year and then try to convince Damien that if they can add more guys like him, that they could be legitimate SEC contenders and maybe national title contenders, then I think that improves their chances. But I would just hold your horses right there and calling Damien Harris Kentucky a little bit. I still have him to the Buckeyes, but let's see how things go over the next couple of months.
I like it. Talk me off the ledge there. I like it, Alex. The Buckeyes have 16 commitments in their 2015 class. They are ranked 15th in the 24/7 Sports Composite Team rankings. They have finished in the top 5 in each of the first 3 years of the Urban Meyer era, including the recruiting class where Urban had about a month to put it together. So I don't think they're going to have a top 5 class. Hopefully they can finish with a top 10 class. Let's get your opinion on this, your predictions on this. Twofold. How many will they sign in this class, and where do you think they will end up being ranked?
I'm going to go with 23. I think that's the number they sign. I think they finish in the top 10. I'm going to call it something around maybe 7 or 8, which is still a great finish. I think, the fact that I wouldn't say the talent in the state of Ohio isn't good this year. It's good. I think there's some players at positions of not of need for Ohio State. Someone like David Dowell's a great player, I think, at wide receiver. He just committed to Kentucky after originally being committed to Northwestern. But I'm not sure Ohio State, that was a strong position of need for them to get a guy like David Dowell. So I just don't think the class is that deep. I think there's a lot of guys that position of need. They did miss on some guys, Sean Crawford, Elijah Taylor, guys like that. So, and Jerome Baker currently at the moment. So there were some weird cases in the state of Ohio this year that I think are affecting the class. But I think they're going to finish really strong. I think Matthew Burrell, things are looking good with him. I think Torrance Gibson, things are looking good with him. I definitely see another lineman in addition to Burrell. Damien Harris, of course, still in the mix. If they don't get Harris, they're going to go after Michael Weber, maybe go back on L.J. Scott. Jordan Scarlett still in the picture. Alex Stump at wide receiver. And Lawrence Cager are a couple other guys. And they have some other big-time targets out there, obviously Josh Sweat, Neville Gallimore. So they could finish in the top 5. It's certainly possible. But I'm going to go with about 7th or 8th for the class.
That sounds good to me. I would take that, 7th or 8th. I think that would be an excellent way to close out this class for the Buckeyes. Again, ranked 15th right now, so if they finish 7th or 8th, I think Buckeye fans will be very pleased with that. Final topic. The big question mark for Ohio State entering the season was, of course, passing defense. The Buckeyes were an abysmal 110th in the country in passing defense last year. So far this year, they are 16th in the nation. Now, playing Navy, of course, helps those stats out. But still, I mean, even in total defense, they're 18th in the country in total defense. So the bottom line is we're nearly halfway through the regular season. There is marked improvement on the defensive side of the ball for the Buckeyes. Alex, what are your thoughts on the defense? Changes Chris Ash has made? Anything you want to say about the defense? Just what are your thoughts on the D?
I think much improved, but I think people also need to realize that this is a unit with a lot of inexperience. This is a unit in their first year in Chris Ash's system. So I think there's growing pains. I mean, you saw some blown coverages a couple weeks ago against Cincinnati where they got burned on 3 or 4 deep balls. And then you saw a miscommunication late in the game with Cam Burrows last week against Maryland. So there have been, I think overall the play is much more improved. I think the tackling is much more sure. I really like the press coverage. People are getting press and bump and run, I think, mixed up a lot. But Buckeyes are not necessarily playing bump and run on every down. They're playing press coverage, which means they're playing closer to the line of scrimmage and closer to the wide receiver to prevent the screens that really burned them last year. So I think that plus the improved tackling has helped a lot. And I think, just playing a little bit more aggressive style of defense, attacking style of defense, is making this unit better. And I think they're going to get better and better each and every game. By the end of the year, we're going to say this is a pretty good defense, and I think next year you're going to see like the real finished product that's going to be very special under Chris Ash, pending he stays at Ohio State.
Wednesday night is always a big night for team coverage, and we will interview Urban Meyer after Ohio State's practice this evening around 6:30. We will also interview center Jacoby Boren, defensive end Steve Miller, and special teams mainstay Craig Fada, who is a walk-on. We'll interview those guys after practice. Look for stories and bolts on what Coach Meyer and the players have to say late this evening. We'll try and get the Meyer story posted by 8 p.m. Thank you to Alex Gleitman. Thanks to all the listeners out there. Take it away, best damn band in the land.